Cannon has indefinitely postponed the criminal trial of former President Donald Trump, which, by the way, concerns charges brought to you specially by special counsel Jack Smith. Now, these charges, they allege that Donald Trump illegally retained classified national security documents after his presidency and then concealed them from federal authorities. Now, this particular trial, it was actually led by prosecutor or special counsel Jack Smith, and it was actually initially set to begin on May 20th, but Judge Aileen Cannon of Florida, who was appointed by Donald Trump, by the way, during his presidency, has decided to go ahead and push this date back due to the unresolved pretrial issues. Now, as special counsel Jack Smith prepares his case, a lot of folks are just saying he's finished, he's done, this is about it, right? But special counsel Jack Smith, he's going to prepare his case. He's going to set up a new series of, he's got some new series pretrial proceedings, and they have already been scheduled with the next major hearing set for July 22nd. So you got Judge Cannon. She noted that it would be unwise to set a firm trial date now because there's significant legal questions that still need to be addressed, especially concerning how classified information will likely be handled during this trial. So she went ahead and emphasized that rushing into a trial, a federal level trial with, here you have a presidential candidate here on the line here, rushing into this trial without resolving these matters first would likely compromise the fairness and the thorough consideration that Jack Smith's high profile case demands. So this particular development casts a lot of doubt on whether or not Donald Trump will actually have to even go to trial before the upcoming November 5th election, where he is a leading Republican candidate. His lawyers are aware of the complex issues that are outlined by Jack Smith, and they've requested that the trial be postponed until after the election. Now, in the middle of the election, Donald Trump is facing several other legal issues across various courts, which is downright unheard of, to be honest with you, including other cases led by DA Alvin Bragg, DA Fannie Willis, and AG Letitia James. But these all add to the complexity of this whole situation as he attempts to campaign against President Joe Biden. And given the latest ruling and ongoing preparations for, handling the classified materials in the trial that's led by Jack Smith, let's just say it's increasingly unlikely that any of Donald Trump's trials will conclude before the election. Now, if you guys are able to see and hear me okay, hopefully we're good. We're about 3 minutes into the live. I see a few folks coming in here. Bob, just call me Jay. What's going on? John Gardner, Susan Valenzuela. Awesome. Okay. What's going on, Nikki Juice Bar? Okay, guys. So former Fox News host Tucker Carlson, you may have heard of him. He said that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as NATO, wants a hot war with Russia that would destroy the United States. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, that just doesn't sound very good, does it? Now, this was during an interview on the Tucker Carlson network with Balazs, what's his name? Balazs Orban, an advisor for the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban. Now, according to Orban, Hungary could end up in a heated war between NATO and Russia, a prospect that he described as quite literally the worst thing possible. Now, talking about the war, Orban warned that nobody wants to do it, but no one is strong enough to stop it either. Now, as for Tucker Carlson, you may have noticed how a lot of the mainstream media companies have been pretty much treating him pretty badly lately, right? Have you guys noticed that? I've noticed it. And so basically, the mainstream media hates Tucker Carlson because he's eating their lunch. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, in fact, in June of 2021, while he was still at Fox News, Tucker Carlson, he was informed by a U.S. government whistleblower get this, guys, that members of Joe Biden's National Security Agency, the NSA, they were spying on Tucker Carlson, and that the government agents were attempting to leak his private communications to the opposition media. And as soon as Tucker Carlson announced his interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin, well, all the big time media channels just couldn't hide their envy. Never Trump standard bearer Bill Kristol, he wrote on X at the time, saying that the paper that perhaps we need a total and complete shutdown of Tucker Carlson re-entering the United States until our country's representatives can basically figure out what was going on. Can you believe this? I mean, Tucker Carlson is literally only trying to bring Americans the news that we can't get otherwise. I don't know if you guys are a fan of Tucker Carlson or not, but I think he brings the news pretty freaking straightforward, at least compared to a lot of the different news outlets that are out here. What do you guys think? Now, but you know what? Tucker Carlson, his supporters, most of Tucker Carlson's supporters see straight through the bull, right? It's not that journalists believe that Vladimir Putin should be blackballed, but rather they want the credit and they want to control the message. They want to control the narrative, right? This is what we're seeing here. In fact, CNN's own Christiane Amanpour, she even admitted it on Twitter, saying that they've been trying to interview President Putin every day since his full-scale invasion of the Ukraine. So CNN couldn't even get in front of him, but Tucker Carlson manages to pull it off. So CNN sounds a little bit jealous, if you ask me. But there you go. They're basically admitting that they want what they can't have. They want what Tucker Carlson has, which is an into the Russian leader's headspace. But more recently, Tucker Carlson, he was actually caught up in a little bit of controversy as he published his sit down with the ultra nationalist ideologue Alexander Dugin. And in this particular interview, Dugin, long close Russian Vladimir Putin and confidant and considered by some his ideological brain, railed against what he called Anglo-Saxon individualism and said Western liberal values would destroy the human identity. I mean, like, Tucker Carlson is definitely making a name for himself. I mean, just think about it for a second, right? Tucker Carlson, he interviewed Putin in Moscow. I couldn't believe when I saw it. And, kind of marking the Russian leader's first sit down with a Western journalist since Russia began its military invasion of the Ukraine in 2022. I mean, this is a pretty big freaking deal, guys. This is a big freaking deal, all right? And there was even like a rumor that was going around that former First Lady Melania Trump was actually pushing for her husband, Donald Trump, to pick Tucker Carlson as his 2024 running mate. Now, I gotta take a pause here for a second. What do you guys think about that? Should Donald Trump pick Tucker Carlson as his 2024 running mate? I want to hear from you guys. If you think so, let me know in the comments. You can just type in yes, Tucker. You can type in Tucker Carlson or whatever. Or do you think Vivek Ramaswamy would be a better pick? Maybe Tim Scott. Maybe who's some other good candidates out here that could be good Donald Trump VPs? Can you think of any? I would love to hear from you guys. How about, let's see, who would be a good pick? How about Tulsi Gabbard? You think Tulsi Gabbard, she's the former House member from Hawaii, and she's a former Democratic Congresswoman, by the way. So she jumped the line. How about Kevin McCarthy? I see some Kevin McCarthy in here. I see some Marco Rubio, Ben Carson. Yeah, so there's some strong candidates out there. You got Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, maybe Greg Abbott from Texas. He's big on that border. So there's a lot of good possible candidates out there. And of course, you can't forget about Kristi Noem, governor of South Dakota, Elise Stefanik. So The list goes on and on and on. But let me know who you think would be a good pick in here. Now, according to this, Donald Trump's wife, Melania Trump, believes that the ex-Fox News host, Tucker Carlson, will be a powerful onstage extension to her husband, former President Donald Trump. Now, you got to admit, I mean, like, much like Donald Trump, I wouldn't bet against Tucker Carlson. I just wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we got a lot to talk about today. Let's see how Tucker's own experience parallels that of the former presidents. You guys ready for this? They've been attacking Donald Trump, but they've also been attacking Tucker Carlson. So first, here's Tucker Carlson explaining his decision to interview Russian President Vladimir Putin. Take a listen.
We're here to interview the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. We'll be doing that soon. There are risks to conducting an interview like this, obviously, so we thought about it carefully over many months. Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine.
That's true. They typically do not let you hear anything about what's really going on in Russia or in the Ukraine. We just get like their flavor, our mainstream media's flavor on what's going on. But unless you got some inside intel or you know what news sources to tune into, you're not really going to know. Anyway, now you got to admit, Tucker Carlson makes a lot of sense here, right? I mean, like, some say they love Tucker Carlson for doing this. Like, it's like my uncle always says, there's three sides to every story. This side, and what really happened, right? Now, the fact that so many people don't even really want to hear the other side is just incomprehensible if you think about it. I mean, I hope if Tucker Carlson ever does go on trial for anything, he gets to speak his perspective on the charge, not like what they're trying to do with Donald Trump and hit him with these gag orders left and right? Anyway, and with what they're doing with Donald Trump, I honestly wouldn't be too terribly surprised if they actually were to go after Tucker Carlson next. You know what I mean? Mainstream media companies, they may ignore Tucker Carlson, but I'm certainly, me personally, I'm paying attention, especially now that he's warning that NATO wants a hot war with Russia that would ultimately inevitably destroy the United States as we know it. And he discussed this imminent NATO war with Russia during his sit down with Balázs Orbán, an advisor for Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. So Balázs Orbán said that Hungary could end up in a heated war between NATO and Russia, a prospect that he described as the worst thing possible. Not a good sign. Now, this is when Carlson, he added that everything NATO has been doing, it shows that they want a hot war with Russia, which is just to destroy the United States and possibly Hungary too. Now, for one, NATO has been a key supporter of Kiev ever since Russian President Vladimir Putin initiated the war in the Ukraine in February of 2022. Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, has publicly stated that the alliance stands with Kiev, with many NATO members becoming the biggest providers of aid to the Ukraine. And I mean, like, just look at the United States right now, right? You got the Biden administration out here just approved, what, $60 billion in new funding just for the Ukraine. Now, granted, it was $95 billion package that they just passed, but $60 billion of it is new funding for the Ukraine on top of the billions of dollars that we've already sent before that. I mean, how about we keep some of this money here in America? How about we take care of those on Social Security and we address our southern border here? But nah. So in a recent statement, NATO voiced very serious concerns about harmful activities on the territory of its members, essentially saying that NATO allies are deeply concerned about the recent malign activities on Allied territory, including those resulting in the investigation and the charging of multiple individuals in connection with hostile state activity affecting Chechnya, Estonia, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and of course, United Kingdom. Now, the alliance it only highlighted that these activities are a part of a bigger, intensifying Russian campaign across the Euro-Atlantic area. And this isn't, this could involve sabotage, violence, cyber attacks, disinformation, and all sorts of other hybrid attacks. So these actions, NATO asserts, pose a significant threat on the security of its members. We're a member, guys. The United States is a member of NATO. So last month, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, he cautioned that Western nations were nearing a point where they might deploy troops to the Ukraine, kind of describing it as a dangerous move that could ultimately pull Europe into deeper conflict. Now, Orban said that the Western leaders are just one step away from sending soldiers to fight in the Ukraine. He even said that the EU's headquarters in Brussels was playing with fire. Now, Orban, he's among the few NATO leaders who have been sympathetic to Putin and have consistently opposed the EU aid to the Ukraine. And, has been pretty vocal against the Ukraine joining NATO on top of that. But despite this particular stance, NATO has effectively reaffirmed its commitment, saying that the alliance will act individually and collectively at the same time to address these actions. And they will continue to coordinate very closely, enhancing their tools to tackle Russian hybrid strategies and ensuring the preparedness against any kind of attacks or threats. Now, as he concluded this statement, NATO condemned Russia's actions and called on the country to uphold its obligations, its international obligations, just like allies are supposed to do. And so, as you guys can see, the alliance, it remains pretty resolute. They're going to remain, and they have remained, in support of the Ukraine. But what's really scary is that this could mean that America and American troops, Americans actually getting pulled into yet another war. And this is concerning. I don't know how many of you guys have kids, friends, family members, maybe even yourself that are in the armed forces. We could theoretically get pulled back in or get pulled into a new war. And so as for Carlson, no matter what anybody says about this, about his choice to, for who he chooses to interview, I mean, you got to hand to the guy. I mean, he knows how to get the perspective that mainstream media either can't get or just flat out ignores. I mean, am I right? I mean, this is why his supporters are applauding Tucker Carlson for his courage, his strength, his genuine interest to go to Russia and meet with the president. I mean, for a lot of people, Carlson took a massive step for dialogue and for understanding. I mean, I have a completely different perspective of Russia and the Ukraine now that Tucker Carlson has actually made the visit. So I'm personally thankful that he actually did that. He hit up one of the grocery stores in Russia. He went to one of the malls, and I was really, really shocked at how things looked over there. It was totally different than the picture I had in my mind until he actually went there. So anyway, contrary to what many believe, the interview really wasn't a flop. I mean, like, some might even say that it was heroic in their eyes, and Tucker Carlson is a person of substance, and it's kind of hard to argue that. But as they say, every step is an accomplishment, no matter how small it is. And so now, I'm really looking forward to him going back over there for another interview. What about you guys? Now, I should have probably asked you guys long ago. We're like almost 20 minutes into this video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button for the video. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these videos. John Gardner's in the comments. We got Katalia in the comments. Let's see. We got Ronald Beard, Keenan Ripon. What is going on, everyone? Yeah. So anyway, so Tucker Carlson, he had a recent chat with Balazs Orban. And this comes on the heels of some flack that he caught for his previous interview with a controversial Russian figure, ultra-nationalist. He's talking about, we're talking about Alexander Dugin here. And so this was in the last week of April. Dugin, who's a close ally with Putin and even considered his ideological guru by some people, criticize what he sees as Anglo-Saxon individualism and claim that Western liberal values would destroy human identity. Now, earlier this year in February, Tucker Carlson, he also scored a rare interview with Vladimir Putin himself in Moscow. And this literally marked the first time that the Russian leader sat down with a Western journalist since the start of the Ukraine conflict. And this interview also drew a lot of criticism and even merited surveillance from the NSA. Now, before his Putin interview, Tucker Carlson was informed by a U.S. government whistleblower that members of Biden's national security agency were literally spying on Carlson, and that the government agents were trying to leak his private communications to the opposition media. So needless to say, the CIA, they need to kind of back off of Tucker, if you ask me. What do you guys think? Should the CIA back off of Tucker Carlson? But, you can see the kind of impact that this guy is having. And I think that this is why they feel like he may be a threat, if that makes sense. So anyway, but as soon as Tucker Carlson announced the interview, chaos erupted in the mainstream media. I mean, you had guys like Bill Kristol asking for a total and a complete shutdown for Tucker Carlson re-entering the United States. Tucker Carlson's an American citizen. So why are you trying to lock out American citizens for just doing a freaking interview? This is journalism, right? Anyway, but what he didn't quite say was that when Bill Kristol was the boss over at the now defunct Weekly Standard and Tucker Carlson worked there, Kristol, he used to really talk up to Tucker. He even told the Washington Post that Tucker Carlson was engaging in boyish he was engaging and he had like a boyish character. People took a liking to him, and that Tucker Carlson, to his credit, he reports it like it is. And so at one point he seemed to he pretty much liked Tucker Carlson. And it's amazing how the tables have turned. Meanwhile, you got Sebastian Gorka, who used to work for Trump, and he once sold the Let Tucker Speak t-shirts on his website. He's really turned against the former Fox host Tucker Carlson. He even jumped on X, aka Twitter, to blast Tucker, saying that he remembers when Americans didn't do PR for KGB colonels. Well, without being agents of the Kremlin, of course. Now, I think it's really just odd or weird that people who used to be friends or allies or at least, cool with Tucker have turned their backs on him. I just think that's a little bit weird. All after this particular interview. And does that make any sense to you guys? I'm just wondering. Now, we got all sorts of names that had come up when Tucker, that had come up for Tucker when he announced his Putin interview. The mainstream media circuit called him a traitor and a Putin puppet. And if I remember correctly, I think it was even Hillary Clinton. She called him like a useful idiot or something like that. I mean, just all sorts of, we don't need any of this, right? He just did an interview, guys. Relax. CNN reported that the Russian state media was excited about Tucker Carlson's visit, actually saying that the interview was a great opportunity for Putin to chat with a big supporter, and that Tucker is, pretty much a hero over in Russia. So I think that's pretty freaking cool. I mean, what if all the big nations just kind of got along? You know what I'm saying? And anyway, it might be a far-fetched idea, but it surely would be nice. But honestly, if you think about it, mainstream journalists, they're not saying Putin should be off limits. They're pretty much just saying, look, we want in on the action and we want to control the narrative. That's what they're trying to do. And I think this is why Putin didn't want any of their previous interviews. This is why Putin didn't accept their previous interviews, because he knew that a lot of these mainstream media publications here in America, they're just going to twist the story. You got Steve Rosenberg from the BBC. He said that they lodged several requests with the Kremlin for a Putin interview in the 18 months since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The Kremlin's response? Well, from Dmitry Peskov, The spokesperson said that they get tons of interview requests, especially from big Western media, which he claims don't even try to hide their bias. So Putin already knows what's up, and he doesn't want to waste his time with people who are just going to basically get an interview from him, chop it up into bits, create the bites that they want, and manipulate what he's actually said. He noted that Tucker Carlson's take is different. He said that Tucker has a position that's just different from the rest, and it's not pro-Russian by any means, and it's not pro-Ukrainian either, but rather he says that it's pro-American. But at least it stands in a clear contrast to the position of the traditional Anglo-Saxon media. Now, this came from Russian President Vladimir Putin himself. Now, Carlson said in an interview, teasing the interview, that, as journalists, their job is to inform the public. And that includes talking to all sorts of leaders, even the autocratic or the dangerous ones. So, it's not a new concept. I mean, you guys remember when CNN's Peter Arnett, he interviewed Osama bin Laden in 1997, or even when CBS sat down with Saddam Hussein back in 2003. And then, of course, there was a time when Sean Penn interviewed El Chapo back in 2015. So Putin himself, he's not new to interviews. And he sat down with George Stephanopoulos, Charlie Rose, Barbara Walters, Megyn Kelly, and Oliver Stone. And he even wrote an article in the New York Times in 2013. So are all of these interviewers traitors? Of course, some people might say so, but I mean, not just because they gave Putin a platform. I mean, imagine if Tucker Carlson's interview with, imagine if Tucker's interview had aired on Fox News, for example, right? We would probably be seeing a different level of outrage. I'm willing to bet. Despite Fox News being a major voice in the Republican sphere and, part of the old guard media, so to speak, they're used to a certain kind of play it safe routine. The real issue is not Putin. It's that Carlson, with his contrarian and populist approach, is pretty much broken free from traditional media, and it's now pulling in viewers on his own terms. He ain't reporting to no boss no more. And that's making the establishment nervous, and they don't like that. And, as some pro-Carlson articles have mentioned, now that he's taking subscribers away and is a truly free agent, well, now there's more reason to try to pounce on him. So anyway, I mean, I think that I like Tucker Carlson's unapologetically bold approach to journalism. I mean, we've seen how he challenges the status quo. He confronts a lot of the traditional narratives. He gets the interviews that most mainstream media either wouldn't dare to get or just can't even get it, right? So from his discussions with controversial figures to his willingness to address a lot of the topics that others just typically just kind of shy away from, Carlson's definitely making his own new path in the world of news, and I can personally appreciate that. I don't need the fake news, but what do you guys think? Let me jump up in the comments. Let me see what you guys are saying here. Let's see. No, Tucker needs to be there telling the truth. Thank you, Dina. We got Queen in the house. We've got Yellow Lab 2007. Appreciate the applause. What's going on, Dallas Haskin Gamings? What's up? Queen talking about Ron for president. I had somebody else in here talking about Ron for VP earlier today. Let's see. All right, so let's see. We got Lady Liberty WDC. No, Rubio for VP. Let's see. Patrick Lund, Rock president. Carrie Smith says Vivek Ramaswamy for vice president. Byron Donalds for VP. Interesting. Appreciate you, Nelson Alvarez, for your comment. Deborah Kula says, I want Tucker to go back to Russia, but I would like to go with him so I could go grocery shopping since everything's a lot cheaper there. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's great. You know what's crazy? I was following this one couple that was in Russia, during the time when the sanctions, when Biden had first originally put like sanctions on Russia, and they were showing what life was like at the time. This was like when the Russia-Ukraine war first started back, what is that, 2002? And they were literally going grocery shopping. It was just crazy how normal their life was. And it's like, man, like your countries are at war, but yet life for them seemed normal. Their gas prices, if you converted it to like USD dollars, their gas prices were actually less than ours, even after Biden had put the sanctions on. It's like when the sanctions were put on, we got punished. Our gas prices went up, not theirs. Their the food costs, the cost of their food at the grocery stores look, at least for the items that I saw them putting in the grocery carts, and I was doing the conversions, I was like, man, like they're under these sanctions, but everything over there is still cheaper. I don't see how they're getting hurt. So I don't know if Biden put the sanctions on backwards or something, but we got screwed, not them. Let's see. Oh man, we got a lot of people in the comments. Noam is great. She's also a hottie. I appreciate it, Big Paulie, for your comment. Let's see. We got Carol Ann. Carol Ann says, I'm thankful that Trump will even consider running again after all the horrible treatment he's endured. However, whoever Trump chooses needs to be thick-skinned and electable in 4 years. That's a very good point, too, because typically what we've seen is whoever the VP is typically ends up running as the president sometime in the future, typically shortly after the president's term's up. Let's see. Appreciate you, Katalia, getting everybody to hit the like button. Hey, if you guys haven't already, hit the like button for your boy. Totally appreciate you guys. I also want to thank you, as always, for sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for subscribing to the channel for content like this and news that matters. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.